Mark Davis says he is not going to go to a Raider game if fans can't go.
People, I don't think they'd ever think this would come out of my mouth. I give Mark Davis some credit on this one. Now, he's somewhat backed up into a corner, and we talked about this a couple weeks ago, that he was in a shitty spot. That this, unlike Stan, that doesn't have to apologize or even make these type statements, like, I fucking paid for not just everything. I'm literally carrying an extra team on my back, and hey, NFL, I'm putting your network in my building, right? Mark is kind of on the hook with, I don't know, a group that's historically known. Now it's corporate now, but there have been many movies around where people get put out in the middle of the desert. So again, corporate now, Fortune 500. I think it's a little safer environment in Vegas, but it's still, I would say it's one of those industries that, like, Zuckerberg loves using the word, like, it's our community. Like, no, Mark, you're the lead shareholder. You're the one making all the money. I'm a member of Facebook. I make nothing. Vegas is all about the money. No one even pretends. They're known for the house always wins. So literally you go into a place, you give them your money knowing, like, yeah, I'm not going to come out really with anything.
You're
like,
paying for the enjoyment.
Yeah, that's the motto of the place. Yeah, the house always wins. Even though, like, every once in a while you win. These guys finance Mark. And I think Mark's in a tough spot where it's almost like, listen, I can't do the half-ass thing, because how do you make that? That gets complicated, right? How do you make everyone happy in a town that's just kind of different to begin with? It to me is the right move. I give him credit. Now, the one area, like, does he get spotted? Like, damn, Mark Davis is in the suite. You know, is it going to be hard? But we've always said this. Listen, Mark in some realm gets a bad rap in the sense of, you can say whatever you want about his look and his finances. When we dealt with him, I think he didn't always agree with some things I said about his post-game show and his team and all, but when you just dealt with him, he has to be as easy to talk to as any NFL owner in the league. Just in terms of just have a conversation, like, what a nice day. What do you eat for dinner? Like,
we'd see him we'd see him at Napa at the training. We'd go up there.
He was always really friendly. Come up and bullshit, sit down. Like, he was just very.
He'd say, hey, you want to stay for an interview? Remember that we had one conversation where he sat down. We're like, do you want to stay for the interview? He's like, no. I'm not here to do that. I'm just saying hi.
But he would have, like, legitimate conversations off the record about things he was frustrated with or thought was going on or what he thought about the team, and it was.
So
people think we hate him, and I always really enjoy. Like, I worked for Jeffrey Lurie. Never had a conversation close to like the ones I had with Mark Davis.
No, this does come from a place of respect. So I come from a place of respect. So when I say what I'm about to say, this is not just a flippant, like, oh, we're just piling on. I don't give him as much credit as you do for two reasons. One, it's pretty transparent. Like, at the end of the day, no season ticket holder who bought season tickets is going to not ask for their refund because you stood up for them and said, well, I'm not, if they can't come, I'm not coming.
But he knows that.
And this really is going to reach a point where you're going to have to make a decision. Am I actually going to not go into the stadium for any of my team's games this year? Or nothing. It's either I'm going to go in and I'm going to go back on my word because fans aren't there, or I won't. Like, I don't really know what the end game is here with this. And I don't know how much credit you're really getting. Now maybe you are getting more credit than I'm guessing he'll get for it in terms of just, like, among the fan base. Because even Floyer wrote, like, oh, this is bringing the renegade culture back. It's like, yeah, not really. You're just saying I'm not going to go if my fans don't get to go. It's not going to be up to him. So I don't know. I think it's pretty transparent, A, and B, it's just pandering. But B, I just don't know what the end game here is. So your players are going to not be in the stadium. Your players are going to be in the stadium. You're not going to be there with them.
Yeah, but
because you said this in July.
Yeah, but I don't think they were the owner. Like, to me, especially him, Gruden and Mayock will be there. That's all that matters.
I'm not saying the players are going to look up and go, what's going on with our organization? I'm just saying, are you really not going to go to a game in your new stadium?
Well,
maybe he won't. And maybe he won't. And if he doesn't, cool. But I don't really know how much. I don't know that he's really getting that much credit for the whole thing.
I think this is where he's taken a stand. Is he made a big fuss about? Because I think there's a decent chance that, especially in Vegas, they would allow 20,000 people of the 65,000, right? Or allow a percentage. And that was something that we talked about, what we say, in the last month, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. He was adamant against, because then I think he's like, how do I play favorites to all these guys that gave me all this money? It was a
He's
tough
the
spot
only
for
one that
him.
voted against putting advertisements on seats.
Yeah, and allowing a percentage. He's like, well, how can I tell this guy to come in and he can't come in?
Right.
And he's kind of drawing a line in the sand against that. Not as much just the overall situation. It was like, I can't. These guys gave me so much money because I think you're jumping the shark a little bit in the sense of he had like this, him showing up or not, like the refund, it's happening. Now, I guess you could push back and say, well, if you had like a stagnated, like, you get 2 games out of the 8, so you only have to pay for a quarter of your season tickets. Like, there's probably still a way that he'd be able to get some, and he's just going, no, it's not worth doing that. Maybe we'll see if he changes his tune once it gets like September 1st, and he goes, God, I'm going to lose some money. And once they start doing the economics, and maybe some of the other teams, maybe there's pressure from the league because I've stood on the stance of it should be one for all. Like there's either every team's allowed, some fans, or no teams allowed. Yep. Now the problem is some states might not allow it, but then I thought like, well, there is an economic impact where if you did it that way, I would imagine it would all go into the pool and the players would benefit too. I do think where it gets complicated is part of football home field advantage. With your season tickets, how do you divvy it up? It's not.
And then maybe there's some liability issues for the league.
Yeah, to me, the easy play. Now, this is not the financial play, but the easy play is just go no universal around. Kind of like the league did this with the draft. Again, they didn't lose anything. They just said no parties. No, I guess they didn't care about the parties, but they said no. You couldn't do it from your war room, but you all had to be separate. I'll be a little shocked if they don't do just an umbrella policy, but I guess there is a percentage of just, well, if they go half our teams can have a percentage of fans and we just all put it in the pot. And that's where they pressure Mark like Vegas, like we want to come in, and Mark like we need some of that money to go into the pot, right? So this might be a situation that's out of his control. And didn't you read that like they sold out the seats and they sold out PSLs, but one of the big pushes, like if you're not going to have fans, you do need to refund everyone. One of the big issues, one of the big benefits for having new stadiums is, and we see it when we go to Levi's, are the suites are like quadrupled. And at O.co, where the fuck its name is, didn't have that many to begin with. Let's just say there are 80 suites, let's say 100. The average suite price is probably a year $200,000. So you start doing the math. The suites alone, that's a lot of money to give back, which I'm sure they were hyping up how they were selling them all out in the fall. You start getting that money in. What do you do with the money? When we get paid for stuff, that money goes someplace. Well, once Corona, we had to refund. I remember one advertiser. Again, the numbers aren't close to like millions of dollars, but if it's $10,000 and you spend it and I spend it on something, what if the money's not there?
Yeah. Now, mostly we don't get paid before the fact. We get paid after the fact, but that's where this is different, right?
One company did though, and
that's right.
It's where you just never know, and that's what PSL and season tickets usually are. When do they start paying? Usually during that season coming up for next year, like sometime, especially with a new stadium.
Look, I wouldn't ask him to do this. I wouldn't expect him to do this, even suggesting it. It's one thing to say I'm not showing up. Is he just going to not sell ads on the first 8 rows of seats to prove a point too? Of course not. Of course he's not going to do that.
Well, wouldn't you? I would imagine everyone that's bought in just gets the ads. Because I talk like someone with the 49ers, who you and I know. I ask him, I'm like, God, you're going to be able to charge a lot for that real estate. He's like, well, we're already charging people so much. Yeah. We're just going to SAP, Bud Light. Like our sponsors get that. Like if we had to do the equivalent podcast, we wouldn't try to get new business. We would just double down for the people we're in business with, right?
Did you see the Yankee Mets game?
I just Twitter highlights.
They had the Ford logo was on the back of the mound.
That's pretty cool.
In like blue chalk. Now,
that's genius.
Is that is that something they've added for or are they just trying to find every way to make good on the revenue that on the advertising?
I think there's a lot of make goods.
I would imagine.
Would you imagine that? Was that a Yankee Stadium or Mets?
I think they're playing.
I think it was a Yankee Stadium.
Were they playing Yankee Stadium?
I thought was that the game Todd Frazier hit a home run?
Clint, yeah.
Or Clint, yeah. I'm pretty sure. Thought it was Yankee Stadium when
Maybe
I saw the ball go out.
Yeah.
But wouldn't you imagine Ford's a big Yankee?
Yeah, sponsor? And I would imagine they've got an ad that they count on 45,000 people seeing every day in the stadium.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, think about that. It's kind of like you can equate it to the podcast a little bit. We sell ads based on how many people are going to listen. Well, part of football, I guess football might be. No, I mean it's 80,000 people. You get 10 dates of 80,000 people see the Bud Light Lounge, right? That is a lot of people, and it's tangible humans, like that are there. It's not like, well, we typically get this much. Like in the NFL, even shitty teams feels like the places are pretty packed. And in baseball, it's just the consistency of the bodies.
Do you think Mark Davis people give him a hard time if he's the only owner that doesn't attend his team's games this year?
No, because I do think he's coming from a unique time perspective with the stadium. I think it's more taking a stand for his money of the people paying him. It's not, he's not taking like a stand against Corona, the safety.
I understand, but he is presenting it as if I am standing with all these fans who want to come in, and you're telling me I'm not allowed to bring them in, even though if it were up to me, would bring them in. So we know it's about the money, but he's presenting it like I stand with them.
Well, if I told you the league told him you do whatever you want, like it's your choice.
Yeah, like he'd fill the stadium.
Do you think it would be full week
they
one?
They have a Garth Brooks concert next month. They haven't 64,000 seats sold. They haven't canceled it.
Garth Brooks going to play at that stadium in a month.
It's on the books.
Do you think Garth's going to show up for that?
I don't know. I could see Garth showing up. The stage is the safe place.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't know.
I mean, Garth has to give a refund, right?
Garth does. Well, to me, if you're Mark, like that's a big moneymaker. That's probably
it was the first event in the stadium.
That was going to be the opening event in the stadium. Garth Brooks.
Yeah.
I give the Raiders are coming a long way, guy.
It's pretty good.
Pretty
good. Yeah. So,
here's to me though, you act like I don't view him like taking a stand he's taking a stand for the money.
No, I know what he's doing, but I also know what he's saying. Right? He's saying it like I'm standing with my people. If these people aren't allowed in, I'm not going in. Yeah. And I don't know who that's influencing.
It's not. It's more just, to me, it's making a public statement. It's like when, recently, we talked about this on the podcast, like Verizon and some of those companies that drop Facebook ads. They're like, we don't stand for what Facebook is doing. When it turns out we're in the middle of a pandemic, the first thing that gets cut is advertising, but it was bullshit. To me, his statement is bullshit, but what they're doing, like he'd have to do to hey guys, listen, we're getting fucked.
But it's not solving anything.
Because I would imagine some people are like, well, if I gave you $200,000 for my PSL, do I get 20% of that back or 5% of that back?
Right.
It's one. If you're just a corporation, do we get refunded on anything just beside these tangible tickets? Like I did pay for the right to own that seat. I don't know, this year.
I think you have the right to ask for that money back.
It gets, to me, it's very complicated for him. Like with Jed and
or at least to get a year added to, you should get a year added on the back. Something you should get something. You should get something.
And this gets back to his overall point. He doesn't want to, and this is like where I push back on Mark. Like Mark was sometimes you get thrown a curveball when you think a fastball's come. Like this is it. Like this is just, these are the times we're in. It sucks. No one thinks like it's like you're not the only one going through this, right? It just he's been. I think to me, Stan doesn't give a shit about his sponsors. Like they just come, they pay money. Of course they do. It's the NFL. Like it's much more of a business relationship. And this gets back to our interactions with him. I think he's probably all these major sponsors. He's probably talked with them. I bet some of these guys are like, this guy's actually, what I thought about him, not that bad. Like fucking Raiders are here. He probably feels like I'm letting people down. I think he feels more, and this is where we've always gave him credit. Like he's not some business killer, cutthroat, doesn't give a shit about people. I think he feels like he's letting the city of Vegas that threw him a bone down.
He cares. I just don't know what the end game.
But the one thing I think he could easily come out and say, "Listen, this is the shittiest of shitty situations. No one would wish this upon any fans on any given year. There's just nothing we can do. Obviously, I would give my right leg if I could to have people be, but I can't this year. And I think that people would take a step back. It's not like Vegas goes, well, we're getting screwed when no one else is allowed to come. That's where he probably didn't need to be this, but I think this shows like how much he personally cares. Whether it's in the right,
look, if in the long run he has a relationship with the town and the fans, and this is part of being a sales guy in a new town and trying to show people that here's my cell phone number. You call me any day,
I'm
anytime.
indebted to you.
Yeah, exactly. I owe you, and we're gonna make this right, and this is part of laying the groundwork for that. Then okay, that's fine. And you're right. Your ultimate point is you think he is saying it in part. He's saying it for the money, but you kind of convinced me. I do think because he is saying it in part because he does mean it. Like, I'm trying to show you. He's just stuck. There's really nothing he can do.
To me, like, I feel confident saying this. He feels bad taking their checks when they can't come. Like, I don't think Stan gives a shit.
No.
Right?